Listen, we're here for DCAC week, and this is like this is my favorite week of the year in the data center industry. Not that I don't love going to other conferences, but this is the chance in which I get to host my own. Have you been to a DCAC yet?
This is my first one. I'm looking forward to it. What I see downstairs, I'm excited.
And listen, you guys are coming in, and you didn't just tip your toe in the water. You guys dove in with a cannonball. So do me a favor. Let's start at the beginning, Dave. Introduce yourself.
So my name's David Bell. I'm a vice president of development for our microgrid division, which, to be honest, is mostly focused around the data center industry.
Yeah.
So what my boss, my CEO, brought me into the corporation thinking we were going to go after utility work. And my utility customers started coming to me and saying, you need to talk to data centers. You need to talk to data centers. I'm like, why do I need to talk to data centers?
Because they're the new utilities that you're going to have to support building.
That's right.
So your company's Voltagrid. You guys are the title sponsor of DCAC Live. It's our 9th year, 8th conference, and we're at record-breaking. I think the last I heard a few days ago was we were at 1,200 people registered. So it's an honor to have you guys here, Dave. And I want you to unpackage, because if you noticed, you guys are the platinum, you guys are the title. And then everyone else downstream of you that was on your heels were the other engine people that are trying to provide power as a product or power as a service, right? And that is the theme of this conference. It really is based on 3 things, and those are the 3 existential threats to this industry: people, power, and capacity.
That's right.
And that's where our 2 worlds collide, right? So we met on a boat in Miami
that's true.
At a Jambacher conference, right? Onio Jambacher, was that who it was?
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah.
And we were in they trap you on that boat. So in case you disagree with what Olaf has to say, they
throw you over.
I love Olaf, by the way.
Yeah, great guy.
But the deal is that's where we first met, and you're from Canada.
Yeah.
And you were like, hey man, we're getting in this game, and you guys weren't coming to take part. You look like you guys wanted to roll in here and take over. And
yeah,
we could respect that. So that's how we're talking.
Yeah, you know what it was? I think it was all the work that we were doing in the oil and gas industry, probably in large amounts of power. We started to notice the trends. It was like, oh, AI is going to be a fluctuating load. I'm like, have you ever seen a frac crew?
Oh,
right?
Insane.
Oh, it's crazy. It's, you'll go from 0 load to 100% load drop or 0 load to 100% load in seconds. And then you'll drop that load in a second.
And that's huge, because some engines are only built for steady state. That's right.
Saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we figured out how to make sure that became that fluctuating load and keeping that power quality over that time. So it found a real good place in that market. The other thing is the people in this industry are great. They're, kind of top line innovators. They're always thinking outside the box. They're always trying to figure out, they're not the cannots, they're the cans, right? They're trying to figure out, how can we do it? They're not giving you obstacles to get over. They're trying to find a way around those obstacles. And that's the thing I love the most about the data center industry.
Well, listen, but your entry to our industry is really a symbolism of 2 completely separate industries colliding. Do you agree?
Yeah. I mean, they're coming at, you cannot mention the word data center without talking about energy right now.
100%.
And you cannot talk about energy without talking about data center right now.
Yeah.
They are now synonymous. They're tied at the hip.
They really are. So listen, I'm really excited to have this time to talk with you. And I know that this podcast is going to air after the conference. And I know that you're giving a little bit of a speech today, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And I'm excited to hear it. I'll be sitting front row. But for those that weren't able to make it, not only that, but these podcasts weren't designed just for the industry, for sure. I mean, there's people in the industry that use them. Some of these podcasts are designed to entertain.
Right.
Some are designed to educate. Right. And then some are designed to inspire. Right. And hopefully we can make a little mix of all those things. And really what we want to do is we want to reach all the soldiers and the sailors and the airmen out in the military bases who don't have a chance to come to these conferences, but are probably going to be working for a job in 5 years from now that hasn't been invented yet, right? So the beauty about doing this at Austin City Limits Live is we have a lot of live noise and music around here. But,
yeah, that's right.
But don't let it distract us from our main mission and our focus and purpose. But the beauty is we really want to reach those people that weren't here to watch you speak later on today. So give us a little bit, a high level, if you can, broad strokes if you want, as deep as you want to take it. But where are we heading as an industry? Where are you heading as an industry? What are you seeing our industries do, together, and how do you see the merge?
Yeah. So behind every innovation, behind every industrial revolution, and I think we're in one right now.
We sure
right?
are.
And so behind any of those has always been the backing of energy. And so I'll equate it even right back to, when Watt, he coined the phrase horsepower, right? It was the way to account for how a steam engine would replace a horse.
Interesting.
And that's what he was doing. He was trying to make it visible for people so he could touch it and feel it and understand how important the steam engine was. He was still trying to sell his innovation. And, when we think about it now, we go historically, of course the steam engine's better than a horse. But, right, you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater, meaning the horse actually replaced manpower, right? And you could plow a bigger field, you can move more grain, you can mill more grain by having horses. And so the domestication of horses it was directly as important as the steam engine.
Yeah, I could argue. I mean, listen, there is, when we created the steam engine, we not only created a locomotive train that transformed the West and transformed society, but we also mechanized ships, which opened the gate for migration, immigration, and trade, right? So these industrial revolutions were bookmarked by things that transformed humanity. That's what defined them. And the first industrial revolution where we did this, I mean, that was an 80-year-long industrial revolution, the very first one, right? So keep going. I'm not interrupting, but just to add to that, I can make an argue.
But you're making a good point. So, okay, where are we now in today? So, okay, the sail was there. The sail took us across the ocean and discovered this place, right? Thank goodness for the sail, right? So the sail came up, and then we came up with the steam engine, and then we had diesel engines, and then we have nuclear engines now that are driving it, right? Yeah. And so when you think about what the possibilities are of the future, and I truly believe the future is nuclear, it's going to take us a while to get there, but once we get there, and so what we have to do is make sure that we don't demonize what was the past, right? Yeah, for our future.
I think that we have the ability. Everyone says that I agree with what you're saying. The only thing I don't agree with is that it's going to take us a while, right? And I say that because I come from the nuclear Navy where, this man's Navy's got 34 different types of nuclear reactors and propulsion plants, and they've been building reactors for 75 years, 76, right? And there's 500 small modular reactors floating around in the ocean right now that we've never heard about an incident on that's had a catastrophic failure of any kind. So I think that it's not that the science is a little ways out, right? Because we split the atom and discovered fission in the mid 40s, right? Late 40s. But what happened was there's a perception of fear, right? And the optics and how we view this is scary, and we're being forced. We've kicked a power can down the road as long as we can, and what's come to the rescue of the data center industry is the natural gas as a service, and that's really. I want you to get into that still a little bit more, because what makes you guys different at Voltagrid versus some of the other groups that we engage with. But you guys aren't trying to provide engines; you're trying to provide power as a service, energy as a service. Yeah, and that's because the just-in-time need to deploy technology, like the commodities level, you can order your laptop customized, and they will begin automating and working on it the next day, and you'll have it instantaneously. Data centers, the sky for the cloud and the home for AI, take months to build, right? And then we're having to look so far down the future now to what we're doing, that energy used to be something that was built in orbit with, because it is an adjacent industry, and it was built alongside and in parallel to the product. Now the energy that's served with the product itself is the product. Right. Connectivity is the product, space, power, and cooling is the product, and energy is the product. Right. So it's the fifth utility. Yeah. So as we talk about this, where do you see natural gas playing? And like, I've read the Goldman reports, there's all kinds of stuff that talk about, we have 45 grids that need to be on the grid, 45 gigs that need to be on the grid in 5.5 years. 27 gigs, or 60% of that is natural gas. Yeah. Right. That's a huge market that's emerging. How do you see that playing and transforming what we're doing?
Well, I mean, I keep saying it, and my people are probably bored of listening to me. I said, but you have to stop chasing the electron and start chasing the molecule, like I said. Nice. Right? So if you remember the modern, you know this because of your background. I'm new to the data center industry next to you, right? So I'm still learning some of this stuff. But it was at the beginning, it was go to the fiber, right? And then
let me mention something, that whole thing about experience in this industry. It's worthless. Because the way that we build data centers today is nothing at all like we did a year ago, and it's going to be nothing like we're doing in a year from now. Yeah. So, like, the beauty about, and I wanted to pause you mid thought, not to be rude.
No, that's fine.
But put a pin in it, Dave, because anybody that's listening that thinks that experience matters, and most like medicine, it matters. Accounting, finance. If you're going to be an engineer, it matters. If you're going to be in the data center industry, just think about it iterates so quickly. It iterates as fast as you're changing habits of your adoption rate of emerging technology. So as you change the way you use technology, our industry pivots and rotates with it.
Right.
Our industry evolves as the consumer is what I'm saying. So experience is useless. You're coming in and we're pivoting right now as an industry anyway, right? So we're a completely different industry than we were a year ago. We weren't ready for you. Now we have to have these conversations. And I think nuclear is faster. I think it's going to be, it's not a time away because of the technology, the application of the technology, the usage capability. It's perception and fear that needs to be mitigated before we can use it as of primary adoption, because there's a lot of people that make a lot of money from things regarding energy that have nothing to do with nuclear.
Right.
And those people are going to have it's like the same people that lobby to make sure cigarettes are out there and all the other things that are harmful to society that we know are.
Yeah.
You're going to have people that are like, listen, man, there's going to be resistance to nuclear not because of its safety or its ability to be more sustainable or the ability to scale faster. It's going to be because people that haven't figured out how to monetize it right.
Yeah.
And other people that want to damper that or suppress the adoption rate of that form of emerging energy until they're going to use fear until they can figure out how to own market and control power with power. That's my perception.
No, and I agree with you completely. And it actually reminds me of, there's a philosopher called Schopenhauer, and he had a thing about ideas or truth, right? He said the truth goes through 3 stages. It's first ridiculed, and then it's violently opposed, and then thirdly, it's finally accepted and given for fact. And so I think that's really what happens. So I've had the luxury of working on or inside of nuclear power plants, right? And so I used to help them with their emergency backup generator units, right, for their chillering equipment, give them spare equipment, and help them with their vacuum building operations as well. And so they're the safest places in the world you'll ever go. There's not a piece of dirt. There's not a piece of paper that's out of place. Everything is in its place. And yeah, I think it's that potential. So my wife got scared a couple of years back. She was talking about 3 Mile Island and watched some video on 3 Mile Island. I'm like, honey, I mean, none of this is true.
Not only did it not fail, but it worked by the way it was designed. That's why I had a secondary. It was a cooling leak that hit the secondary side, which shielded. And people were like, hey, we have a problem. We're like, well, that's why the design was designed like that.
Right.
It's like data centers. Oh, well, there's something wrong with this data center because it had to go on engines. And we're like, it's what it's designed to do. If something doesn't look right, it goes on engines. And then we shift it back when we're ready.
There'd be a bigger problem if the engines didn't fire.
Yeah.
Right.
The only problem, like, you talk about engines and power plants, like Fukushima's engines just weren't elevated high enough. They got flooded. Otherwise, there would have been no problem cooling the reactor, right? So there's a lot of things that we've learned from everything. I mean, the first of anything through the wall is always the bloodiest, but nuclear's been through the wall. Yeah. We've had 120 different retrofits of submarines, refueling of nuclear. I mean, we've done this so much that the Department of Energy from the Department of Defense side has this on lockdown. Yeah. I'm trying to talk about it because I think the most advanced machines and weapons and technology on this earth, which are all the orbit of technology, they were first found in the military, right? So like we should be recruiting more military for this. That's why I'm talking about it in the way that I am,
Yeah, no,
we should be recruiting people to join the military to be trained and exposed on advanced weapons, machinery, and technology so they could later come into this industry and help contribute to what we're doing from energy.
We hire a lot of ex-military people too, and the one thing that we understand is they don't get rattled, right?
Emotional range is different.
Yeah, it's just a different, I'm a little bit excitable and I'm a person, but I'm not the guy that's on the wrench and trying to figure out a problem.
It's still a mission critical. This is the mission critical industry. That's what they call it.
Yeah,
and the military is 1,000% mission critical. It's just they measure it there in their mortality, where we're here. We measure it in our downtime of IT.
You probably have more, I know you have more experience in this as well, but I also noticed that they leave their ego at the door. It's about the mission.
It's objectivity because it's life and death.
Yeah.
So we're like, hey, listen, you're an asshole. I'm better than you, but let's pause on this. We'll fight later. Let's go figure out how to do this.
Yeah.
And that's really like in the military, I found comfort knowing that you could still, trade paint with those people and still be friends and be good teams.
Right.
So, and I think that's what the military does, the incubator for leadership. It shows you how to get through and put the mission and the command first, and then your ego's last.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
So talk to me about what it is that Voltagrid's doing.
So we have
Or maybe the history of it a little bit. I
Yeah,
met your
sure.
CEO as well. Super nice guy.
Yeah, he's a great guy. So Nathan, fairly young man, he's only 35 years old, but he's on a second iteration. So he actually started a compressed natural gas business oh my goodness, when about 10 years ago. And he was one of the co-founders, and they grew that business into a large business. While he was there and a senior executive, he came up with this idea of bringing compressed natural gas and power together and helping, reduce greenhouse gas emissions through stranded power, right? Whether that was the molecule itself, like the diesel, or converting it to gas and creating natural gas engines to do this work. And the board rejected it. And so he bought the idea back for, I can't remember how much money. It was like $16,000 or
Sure.
something like that. And he said, okay, I'm going to go do it myself and start
And that
it
became
myself.
Voltagrid.
And that became Voltagrid. And,
How long ago was that? 3 years?
3 years, and we got 50 gigawatt hours running a day right now.
So you guys started a business 3 years ago based in Houston, I'm guessing?
Yes.
Okay. You guys deployed 50 gigawatt hours so far? So
Per day, yeah.
Per day. All right. And that is just in the United States, the Permian Basin, off the coast of, where are you guys at?
Yeah, so Texas, Pennsylvania, New Mexico, North Dakota, Colorado, so we're all over.
So what you guys are doing is deploying it as a service. So you guys are rolling in either reciprocating engines or turbines of some kind.
Yeah.
Walk us through what you're doing so people that want to engage with Voltagrid, because right now every operator, every developer, every person that has a patch of land that has the capacity or access to the capacity of natural gas is trying to discover what the value of that property is now in the optics of a data center provider.
Sure.
Because it's a lot. It's worth a lot more than it would be for farm, right?
Yeah.
So right now you have a lot of people, like we're developers. We get pulled into a lot of people that own a lot of land, and they say, hey, we want to do this. And the first question is always like, what are you going to do for power? And we're like, well, the utility's not going to come here. So what are you going to do for power?
Right.
Right. And now you're seeing like our worlds will collide a whole lot more because people are looking to do prime generation on the enterprise and the operator side, left, right, and center, especially in Texas. And they're doing it. Most campuses that we talk about in Texas right now start with a G.
Yeah.
1 gig campuses.
Yeah.
Those days are a couple hundred megawatts, but there are limitations to the gas.
There is.
There's limitations to things that we could do. And there's a lot of knowledge to unpackage about what natural gas is going to be. We know it's going to be huge for us.
Yeah.
It's going to be a bridging solution.
Yep.
But we don't know how to make purchasing decisions. Our industry got a very code locked supply chain, and the ethos of our industry is predicated on transparency, predictability, and repeatability. Volume and velocity is the product, not the reliability of the product, right? So if we can deploy, we can win against, you could literally see data center owner operators going head to head against each other they're not winning based on price. They're winning based on who could deliver their product faster. Yeah. And how does natural gas play into that? And how does it play into it as a service versus leaving it to the people to go do it on their own? Because most of these owner operators are going to want you to figure it out.
Yeah.
But 5 years from now, they want the option to buy it from you. Yeah. Right. Or if not, I'm sure the utility provider will want to buy it from you too. Right. Sure. So either way, we have a long way to go. Yeah. Right. But I don't think it's going to take a long time to get there. It's
happening very quickly.
Yeah. It's the cycles. It's not the miles.
Yeah. A couple of things that we've done a little bit differently is we've pre-ordered equipment. So we know the market's there and we know it's growing. And so we have a good backbone of contracted business right now. So right now we're about 800 megawatts with data centers that we're moving forward with in some sort of contractual arrangement. So, but we have way more than that on order. Hence the shirt.
Yeah, talk to us about that shirt. I love that shirt.
So we were starting to do the math on how much we were building, and our VP of operations, who's a power nerd himself, right? He's like, "Oh no!" He goes, "Can we build an extra 3 megawatts?" And I'm like, "Why?" He goes, "Because that would be 1.21 gigawatts." And
nice,
right? And so that's kind of our mantra right now. That by the end of next year, we want to have 1.21 gigawatts that we put into play. Yeah,
I love it.
And
so you need that guy to come in and talk to you about it. The professor himself.
Well, I don't know if I have those kind of contacts in Hollywood. Yeah. Maybe you can help me with that. Yeah. So, but we're definitely excited about the prospect of that, and it's just growing so fast. and so the reason being is we know that the speed is going to matter. And then the other thing is we have a way to expedite gas. So Nathan and a lot of our team members are actually gas experts. So they know how to get the gas, they know how to tap the gas, they know how to contract the gas.
There's different types of gases too, right?
That's right. And so how to get it there. And so we're good at doing that. The other thing is we can deploy quickly. So right now we're working on a project. We started in discussions maybe about 2 months ago, and the first engines are going to start landing in November, right? And being built, right? And we can scale with the customer. And the other thing is on my side, I was a power guy. So I knew what you wanted was reliability. And I knew building it at scale mattered, right? And so when we originally started talking to them, everybody was like, you got to get a turbine. It's got to be big and it's got to be, because land is expensive. I'm like, guys, I know gas is cheap, but have you done the calculation on how much gas you're going to burn?
Turbines just suck up too much if they're not steady state. They run better when they're steady, right? When they're fully loaded.
Yeah. So the best way to run a turbine is either completely 100% on or just turn it off, right? So those are the two most efficient methods. And there's nothing against turbines. We use them as well in our business. They're great. They do what they need to do. But, we started talking about, well, maybe, setting them up smaller and modular would give us an advantage on the reliability numbers. So we have eight or so data scientists that work with us. So I got the head of the data science team to run me some numbers. And I said, let's do some calculations on mean time between failure and a bunch of calculations that we did in the background to say, this is an actual reliability number. We're not just saying, we're going to put an extra generator here or an extra transformer there. We're actually doing calculations on real math. And we started building that out. And I think that what that did is it started to develop a real good relationship with the end user of the data, not just the data center company itself, but the actual client.
Do you see your name in this game being, are you targeting the enterprise end users more than the operators?
No, I think everybody's coming to us right now because we're out there. I mean, I'm sure after this week, we're putting on a pretty big splash here.
Yeah, you guys are cannonballing here for sure.
Yeah.
You guys will definitely get the credibility. There's a lot of visibility from this show for sure for you.
Yeah, and I think we've been getting a lot of interest from a lot of different people. And it's a collaboration. That's one thing about data center industry that's different, is there's a lot more collaboration than I think people give themselves credit for. And I love that idea. I get a call from a guy, and I won't say his name, but I'll spare. He'll just call me up with an idea, right? And he works for one of the big players, and he's just like, I was thinking of this. What do you think? And we just hash it out for about 50 minutes. It's like, okay, I got to go to a meeting. And he hangs up, and we bring it up.
That's what I'm saying. People are trying to figure out the capabilities and limitations of the product.
Yeah,
the reliability of the supply chain. There's blind spots to everything, right? And until people start being transparent and telling us what they are, so we could kind of engineer our own workarounds around them, it just takes time. It's like it's just human nature for people to take time to figure out what they want to do. But right now, there's so much pressure on these operators to nail down their VMI strategy, specifically around primary now, that they could make a really bad decision if they have the wrong agent, and they could go $45 million the wrong direction real fast because they just they didn't understand it well enough. And it really is a whole nother industry. And it's not like, there are things in certain industries that matter. Experience matters. The way that you guys your industry is very mature. It's been around for a long time. It's got ethics, it's got policymakers and governance. It's heavily regulated. Our industry is in its infancy.
Yeah.
Hasn't even been taken mainstream yet. In fact, it's as prevalent to the NFL as kickball, right? But soon it'll be the most dominating industry in the world. Our industry goes faster than every other industry because of every other industry. It's just, people don't realize that it wasn't only 10 years ago, which we started really doing cloud. You're like, look,
a megawatt data center was a big data center.
There was a huge deal. And if you were a sales guy, you're shitting high cotton, you're like, I could do my thing. But the thing is it's a whole nother ball game now, and people don't buy in that capacity anymore. And anything below those megawatt capacities are found in the cloud, and then we're just solving for aggregation of cloud, right? So there's a whole nother game being played, and you guys have to be just as confused as our industry is sometimes too, figuring out where to go to, what's sacred to some of these operators. Every one of these operators have their own baby, and they have their own product. And that product started years ago, where the product used to be I mean, it's funny because it's all a 2 and SLA for everything that every operator sells. But they would be like, well, whose distributed redundant topology looks better than a block array? And there's only so many tier 1, 2, 3, 4.
Right.
So there's a very limited amount of shit. There's only a limitation of mechanical permutation as well. So when you look at these things, you're like, there's really only so many things that could really be separated between one group and the other. So the IP became the operations of the facility. So it was that the reliability of design was the product, then the operational capacity of the design, meaning like groups like Oracle would sit down and be like, we look at all data center operators like NASCAR. You're all stock cars. You're all the same. It's what driver, what teams are helping win the race, right? So the product went from, hey, what's designed the most reliable, to now what is the easiest to operate without human error, to now who could put product on the market the fastest. Yeah. And then now we're talking about who has the highest flexibility in their product, meaning the ability to scale up or down in density, right? And then the ability to have access to more power, because it's just a power game, right? So we're running into this and we're seeing the product change. You guys are running into this and you haven't seen the changes that got us to where we're at, and you don't know the patterns yet to get us to where we're got to be. So we got to get you guys in sync with us so you could get ahead of the puck and get to where the puck is going. Yeah. Because we have no choice but to collaborate with our partners that are going to be a part of an annuity-based program that we make for our clients. We're signing 10-year leases with clients. We need 10 years of scalability with you. I don't need what I need day one. We're not a manufacturing facility. Yeah. We're not going to build something that's going to require 200 megawatts once every 3 years. We're going to need to add 200 megs per quarter. Does that make sense?
Yep.
And I'm not sure if that, I just report the news as I see it from the field, right?
Sure.
We're consultants, we're field,
Yep.
we're owners representations. We're a technology incubator for labor. That's all we are. We provide services, and the feedback and the requests that we have from clients that hire us as a third party objective is, hey, we don't trust these things and these things. Can you go figure out what is real and what's not? And that's our job, is to go out as owners reps, to go out and figure out who's intellectually honest with what their capabilities and limitations are, so that others can put that into the product. Your piece of the product, energy, the substation that goes with it, is now the product, as long as the space power and connectivity. So they have to sell the whole thing, and you're the only part, that industry, not you. Yeah. Not you. That part of the industry is the only part that the soup is not done really cooking on. We've iterated as much. We've optimized, the first part of every industry is to stabilize the industry. The second part is standardizing on that industry. We're getting there. Third part is optimizing within that industry. And we have to figure out how to provide a product that is evolving into power in addition to space, power, and cooling. And we have to do it while relying on people that we don't know how to rely on yet. Yeah. That's, if I were to codify the collective concern of that industry, that's how I would message it.
Yeah. I agree with all that. And it's funny because we talk about that a lot. And one of the things that I think that most people are interested in is that we're pre-buying, and then we have a backing, and the financial backings there with us, and we get tested on that a lot. And so we're very lucky. We have a very receptive board. We have lots of funding behind us. The biggest fund that owns us is, so we're Canadian pension plan, right? And then we have Berkshire Hathaway, right? Halliburton, right? Large money behind us. The other thing we wanted to make sure is we wanted to be like a utility should be, right? And so how do you treat your customer? So the utility industry, and look, I have a lot of favor for them. I've done a lot of work in the utility industry over the years, and I understand them, but they don't understand the customer. It's like, we're the utility, we're a monopoly, and that's just the way life is. And if we don't give it to you, then that's it. They're now coming into a point where they're having to deal with actual real challenge, is they're having competitors in their marketplace. And so what we try to do is say, okay, how would you want to be treated by a utility? That's who we are. And so we're just going to bring you give us an acre, and we'll bring you whatever it is, 100 megawatts, whatever you need. And we'll put that there, and we'll give you breakers off of that, and we'll interconnect to your system. And then we'll treat you as you should be treated. And in doing that, and of course, we are signing SLAs. Right, with the customers, and say, not just on deliveries, not just on the promises that we're making, and they hurt if we were to go backwards on them. And so we're putting SLAs right to the reliability number. And so we're saying, we're going to prove, right, that we're going to do this, and we know we have to earn your trust. And one more thing, the best way to earn your trust, in my opinion, is sometimes when the customer's going the wrong way or trying to route you into the wrong direction, you have to stop and say, this is where we understand something. Here
Better
are
than
the
you.
ramifications of that decision.
Yeah, that's your job, is to protect the customer from hurting themselves. Every great partner will do that for every client, because clients, I mean, they have best intent, but they hire us sometimes to have the best ideas, So let me ask you this. Walk me through some of the applications that you guys are seeing yourselves deploy with energy as a service. How's the commonalities? Are there certain markets that lend itself to a better advantage? Texas, deregulated energy market, perhaps other markets are like that, right? So like, where do you see the sweet spot for natural gas right now as it incrementally ramps into a higher level of adoption?
Yeah, so Texas is obviously our biggest growing market right now. I got to be honest with you. We're spending a lot of time and money in Texas, hundreds of millions of dollars, and we love it because we love Texas.
Texas is growing huge on power right now.
Oh, it's massive. I mean, it's the second largest power growth in North America, next to Virginia.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
so
perfect.
Virginia is number one according to EIA, right?
Okay.
From commercial and industrial loads.
Is that contracted through like Dominion, not actual utilized?
Yeah, that's
okay.
Yeah.
Got you.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah,
I can see that.
Yeah, and so they're massive power markets. I think that there's some benefits to that, where the regulation is easier in Texas as well. They have a thing called eminent domain, and that helps us, right? And that's a good thing. The other thing is, I think that other areas like Pennsylvania are ready to be grown as well. Yeah.
What are the advantages of Pennsylvania and natural gas?
Marcellus gas fields. I mean, it's a massive amount of gas, and I think there's ways that we can help Virginia out as well. So it's not one spot, Utah, Arizona. Right now, we're doing actually the first. We just got into a contract with a company where we're going to actually bring power and compressed natural gas in Arizona, and we're going to help them get through a temporary problem. And it's only temporary. It's only for about a year.
Like SRP? Is it for the utility you're talking about?
No, it's for a data center.
Oh, okay, got you.
Yeah, and so they're in a temporary issue.
Compressed natural gas, you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and power.
So walk us through what that looks like. Does that mean they have their own on-site storage tank for that?
Yeah.
Okay, and you guys you're just kind of constantly going and keeping that thing topped off for them as well?
Yeah, we're bringing.
You're operating their power plant, it sounds like, for them, right?
Yeah, we also have a compressed natural gas business as well, and so that bolts onto the back of it.
Yeah.
And so we actually have a compressed natural gas station, like plant, a couple, just down the road from them, and not far from them, and we're going to be able to deliver the gas and provide them the power. They were initially going to do that project in diesel,
okay,
and so diesel would have been like $239 a megawatt hour. Damn. And I just, right off the go, I mean, we could do that for like a fraction of that cost.
Like, right? I don't want to pin you down.
No, it's fine. It was, yeah.
Is it like less than 300?
It was 30% of the cost of diesel.
30%. Okay. So
it was 30%. So 70% reduction cost.
Are you seeing these data center operators using natural gas in place of the backup diesel engines, or are these primary engines only?
It's a great question. I get asked that all the time. And the reason, and we're trying to figure that out, and we have some ideas around that, but I can't share that today, but of how we're going to get there. But one of the things that you have to think about is contracting natural gas. All right. So imagine just like power, right? So you're going to have some sort of obligation in order to meet that requirement that you're going to have. And how do you contract natural gas when you need it as a backup on an intermittent contract with the gas company?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's the complications. That's why I'm like, it doesn't take time from a technological application perspective to integrate industries. It takes time for the education between the two to find the right blending, and that's the part where there's a lot of trust that needs to take place. Confidence is maybe the better word, not trust, confidence, and that takes time to establish, but I'm trying to understand how long until diesel engines specifically, are removed from the electrical permutation.
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know if that'll ever happen, to be honest.
Okay, so that's the reason why I was asking, is from the side of the ball that you play on, people are coming up to you for, it's an emerging application of technology that's being used in multiple different ways today. The natural gas engines could be used on either side of the meter. They could, there's a million things you can do, right?
Yeah.
So I'm trying to figure out analyze and interpret the tea leaves, and tell me what you're seeing from the field. Like, what are the patterns that you see people making purchasing decisions on the enterprise side or on the operator side?
One is just the speed to market. That's the biggest thing, right?
That's the biggest decision.
Yeah, I think it's like you said it earlier, and I'm just going to reiterate what you said. The other thing is power quality. right? There's a little bit of misunderstanding. Well, just lack of knowledge right now what AI is going to operate. In fact, we actually walked away from a job, and because it was going to be an AI job, and they were asking us to go a certain way, and we said, "Guys, it's never going to work. It's going to fail. It's going to trip. It's going to fail.
Just too big."
It was the wrong technology, and they were forcing us into that technology conversation with them. And we just said, no, it's not worth it. It's not, we didn't want to ruin our reputation in the data center world by doing that, right? And putting that power to work in the wrong application and dealing with it. And said, if you guys want to do it right, give us a call and we'll do that. And they've been giving us a call lately, right? And doing it. I think that's another way you build trust. To go back to your former question, sometimes just saying no.
Right. I think, I mean, that's the best thing you can do for yourself. Every company has to set boundaries on themselves. You're not all things to all people. There's no silver bullets in what any company does. And the thing that harms a business the most from the inside out is, well, there's two things. One is not having the ability to say no and harming your goodwill that you've tried to create with them. I'd rather pass on things that we can't be great at. And to be great at some shit, you have to be willing to not be good at other things. And sometimes you have to really stay focused. The other part is shitty leaders, of course. Right. Shitty leaders will drive out your greatest talent. They'll uninspire the ones that stay anyway. So you have to really figure out how to thread the needle between the two.
Yeah. Nathan and I were talking the other day about something, and I said, it'll eat our soul. He's like, yep, you're right. It'll eat our soul. Done. Because I love the ability to make pivoting decisions like that. Yeah.
CEOs have to be able to trust their gut. I'm learning this humbly, but there are times I've made really bad decisions. And I mean, if it wasn't that, it'd be something else I had to learn. But I've learned that I have to trust my gut more, make more intentional, deliberate decisions faster.
I think the neat thing too is probably true with you. I mean, in any leader, in any business, is it's okay to make mistakes as long as you correct them quickly, right? And
it's okay. It's required.
Yeah,
that's where growth is from.
Yeah, that's true.
That you don't learn anything from anything you do right. You have to make a mistake to learn and grow.
Yeah, you don't want to go searching for struggle, but struggle will make you better, right?
Just don't be scared of it.
Yeah,
and when it happens, don't get mad about it. Just fucking take it as an opportunity to get better.
Just accept it.
We just have to change the optics. If I could tell every kid that's 18 to 24 in Gen Z, and I'm really these conferences and these podcasts are really focused more for them, because Gen Z before the end of this year will outnumber the baby boomers in the workforce, and they're the future. They were the digital pioneers born with. I mean, when you and I were born, I could tell by looking at you, we're in the same age group. You know what I'm saying? Where the Internet of Things had not been invented yet. World Wide Web has not been invented yet. We certainly didn't have smartphones, and those smartphones, it took years until we had applications on those phones. So like when you look at all these things, it took time. Those kids were born with that shit in their hands the first day. Yeah. So 1997, think about all that shit. Amazon.com had launched 3 years prior to that, and the whole world of technology was exploding. So like, yeah, man, we have to really make sure that we express to them the people that are going to be the future, your future labor force for all. The people that are going to be building your stuff will be people hopefully that we hire that are doing that or something along those lines in the military or the trades.
Sure.
I believe that college is the obsolescence of college is something that I'm going to address tomorrow in my speech.
Okay.
But there are only 3 places where we draw talent and labor from today: college, the trades, or the military. Right? And the people that are trained in certain things are going to be the ones that are going to be operating your utility plants for operators, or they're going to be operating on behalf of the operators, and the data center operators themselves become utility operators that they buy the service from you at first, then they buy it. They buy it as a service and they shift it to a CapEx model later, and then they hire these OpEx teams to come in and do it for them.
Yeah. I wonder about that actually. And it was funny. I was at a finance data center financing thing, and multiple CEOs came up to us and said, we don't want to own this stuff. It's a depreciating asset.
And they don't know about it enough yet, but they want to have the option to be able to own it in 5 years.
Yeah.
They don't want to own it now, but you're wrong. I mean, just so you understand, you have to look at the patterns, and you weren't here when the patterns happened there used to be this thing called retail colocation. Can you believe that shit?
Yeah.
Cloud blew that up.
Yeah.
But before that, you had carrier hotels, retail colocation, wholesale. Now you have carrier hotels, cloud, or wholesale data centers. And guess where the cloud goes? Into a hotel data center, right? So the thing is the pattern then was a lot of those retail colo providers that became cloud providers were leasing space in wholesalers at first. I mean, even wholesalers. CyrusOne was leasing space because they were started as a retail colo provider, meaning more than 75% of their revenue in the early days came from retail colocation and connectivity. When they shifted with their clients and started building more enterprise hyperscale, then the volume and velocity shifted with the primary line of business they use to generate revenue. And that came from the wholesale side. And when you shift to the wholesale, you have to own the assets. But when you're a retail provider, why wouldn't you let a wholesale provider that could build it at an economy of scale with a better price point than you can? Let them take that risk, and then you retail colo out of that. I mean, Telex was a retail colo tenant for digital before they were acquired. I can tell you there's other public.
Is that an appreciating asset though?
Well, it depends on what the model was. The model was predicated on margin back then. Okay. The product was all in with power. And then we got really sophisticated once PUE was initiated and there was a reset in the industry. Okay. And we went from people were buying racks at a time. And when the volume of aggregate IT increased, that model imploded and went into the cloud because we couldn't burst into what they needed fast enough. So there had to be something that was able to provide that as a service. The as a service model is the formula that you're following. You should follow what happened with cloud, and then you should understand that it's a crawl, walk, run to get there. You're right. It's more economically efficient and pencils out better if they don't own it at a certain stage, but at another stage, it does makes more sense if they own it.
The thing I've been racking my brain on and talking to this, so I appreciate the open conversation, is why would you take an operating cost and try to capitalize it? The asset depreciates over time.
But it's a cost of capital. That's why. If I'm leasing it from you and at the end of the day, it pencils out way differently versus if I were to buy it and I get the cost of capital down to, the debt market could be great right now, right? And all I know is now if you look at it over the cost of, those power systems are there for 20 years. What's your model that you're running, 12 to 20?
Yeah.
Okay. So when you look at that, you're like,
well, as low as 5, but yeah.
But it depends. There's always something that's greater, but if you put it on a long enough timeline, sometimes that model pivots. Yeah. And some people, it's not whether or not what's better or worse. There's no silver bullet. It's really predicated on what the finance strategy is behind that asset. Right. And if that asset was built to be acquired by another group, then they're going to want to make sure that their EBITDA model is beautiful as they can. But if they're playing the long game and they're the ones that want to be in the hunt and pursuit and acquire in the long term, then they're going to own that asset. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I get where you're going with it.
It's just a business finance strategy. It has nothing to do with what is the most economically efficient in a homogenous environment.
Yeah. The thing we've been having discussions at a high level about that whole thing is, and one of the big things too is, whatever year that is where everything has to be rebuilt or overhauled. Right now, you have to own double the amount of assets in order to do that, right? Because now you're going to have to do, and so it's almost like what's happening in the power generation market itself, right? So we're taking all this firm energy resource and we're replacing it with variable energy, and that means that we have to back up that variable energy with a firm resource as well. So what you're doing is doubling the capitalization of the power generation market, and it's artificially inflating the cost of power. Right.
I think
it's not artificially, it's actually right.
I think that the thing that for most of the years was the product was iterating, the price per kW or the price per megawatt was a bullseye that it was like a race to the bottom so you could get the least. And then they got to the point where they figured out they were all harming each other and they all started protecting their margins. And in that time, you're going to watch. The industry's in its infancy still. This is not an industry that's been around. Actually, it's been around a lot longer than what people think, but it hasn't had a level in which it took 46 years before 1 in 4 Americans adopted electricity, right? So it takes time before we as consumers hit a tipping point. And that tipping point is typically 25% adoption rate, or in application-based technologies, it's when you reach 100 million users or 100 million downloads or whatever it is. Okay. But every other metric is measured and quantified and you can determine, if 3 of us in this room were to go out for a race right now and come back, we wouldn't all come in together. We'd come in for a second and third. That's the way of human nature, right? And everything in this industry is constantly leapfrogging through it. We have not arrived. That's why it's hard for some people that come from other verticals in the industry to understand where they stand. Are we behind? Are we this? Are we that? I'm like, look, this is a completely different industry every quarter. Every quarter, it is not the same as the last. And you've been here long enough to understand that. Do you agree?
Yeah, no, I do see it. It's changing and evolving.
It's almost like shooting. I'm a bird shooter. If I don't lead it by enough, I'm never going to clip it. I have to shoot so far ahead of some birds sometimes.
Yeah.
But most people are just aiming at the bird. By then,
The bird's over there.
And that's how
Wayne Gretzky, right?
Yes, he goes to where the puck is headed, right?
Right.
And that's what we're trying to do, right? And I think the industry is trying to collectively align. Like this is just a collective, right? Where this is a light where I'm going to have a homogenous environment where there's going to be people that are going to say, you know, what you're talking about is the only thing that matters. There's going to be people that be like, we're going to still deal with hydrogen or, you know, solar or wind. And, you know, and then there's going to be people that are like, you guys are all idiots if you're not talking about nuclear and only nuclear. So like, this is the philosophical religions of this industry. And until we can provide an environment for a greater exchange like this, we're never going to advance the industry forward. That's the whole reason why I created this conference. It wasn't to make money. This is not what I do for a living. I wanted to see a greater disruption and change to where people like you from your industry that understand how to analyze and interpret those trends can engage with people like me from this industry that do the same. And we could figure out how we could align ourselves in cadence with each other, because the only thing that matters is providing the greatest value of service that we can to our clients. Yeah. Period, full stop. So we can't do that tripping over each other. We have to figure out how to engage. And that's going to take time. And that's going to take these conferences and these podcasts and people that can unpackage them and understand what matters.
And I think we also can't get lost in the what. We have to also realize every once in a while, the why.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And so, you know, actually I'll be talking at the talk. So about Gutenberg and the creation of the creation of the printing press, right? But nobody talks about Faust and Schopenhauer. And Faust was the guy that backed the money. He gave Gutenberg 800 guilders, right, to do this. And Schopenhauer became his first apprentice,
right,
and actually became the king of publishing in the world, right? And so, but what everybody thinks about Gutenberg is he created the printing press. That's true, but really what he did was he democratized knowledge. He democratized information that could be turned into knowledge that could then be gained as wisdom. He made it available to the world. That you could buy a book because you could afford it by decreasing the price. And that's really what data centers are doing.
Yeah.
Data centers are providing the ability to find the information that you need, aggregate that information into knowledge, and you can do with it what you want, right? And then you can do it. And that's the reason why I think it's so important that the focus on whether getting to the energy to it, whether how we build it, how we sustain it is so very important.
I agree. And I know we ran over a little bit, but like this is conference day. This is day one of conference. I know you have a big speech. I want to give you back some gas so that you get your gunpowder right, because you're going to be kicking it off. Let me say this. It's an honor to have you guys being our title this year, because the entire 1/3 of this conference is focused only on power. As you can tell, an entire day is dedicated just to power, actually. Yeah. And then the rest is based on the industry and technology itself. And the other part is really based on humans, the social dynamic. That's why I have multiple power groups coming here. I have incredible technologists. I got the chief data center technologist for all of NVIDIA coming with Vincent. Wow. And in addition to that, I have he's our modern day Leonidas. His name's Mike Sorelli. He hosts a podcast on Men's Journal, which is now shifted to Sports Illustrated, called Everyday Warrior Podcast. If you ever get a chance to listen to it, he's a former SEAL Team 6 commander, SOCOM commander, and he's the real deal on leadership, stoicism, all that shit. So we have people coming to inspire, we have people coming to educate, and we have people coming to entertain, and this conference is really for all of us. This is the people's conference.
Don't forget people coming here to learn, right? I'm here to learn as well, right?
Take a number, man.
Yeah.
I sit front row to all these. I try to put people on stage that I feel there's a blind spot in the industry for everybody collectively, and we all collect. What I tell all the speakers, and I'll mention to you, is no one will ever remember what you told them, but they will remember how you made them feel. And the only way to make people feel coming out of a conference like this is inspired to go learn more about your topic. Yeah. If you could do that, you won.
Yeah.
So to that end, Dave, is there anything you want to add or leave with the listeners that I didn't give you a chance to kind of unpackage?
No, just really thank you for your time. I really appreciate being here. I mean, I know I'm a rookie in the industry for the data center. I've been around power for a long time, but I love engaging with the people in this industry because there's a lot of good ideas being thrown around right now.
A lot of big fat brains between both our industries, you know what I'm saying? And we are the future. This power and this data center component, which is the fifth utility, it is the future.
It is.
All right, man. Well,
thanks, man. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, buddy.
All right.